Hi, it's Wayne O'Keefe, and I'm fishing at this lake here this morning. It's freezing cold, and I have to keep checking my nose to see it's still there since I can't actually feel it. Anyway, what I've done is I'm facing into the breeze. So on a lake, when you're fishing, that's important because the wind will blow food towards you. So the bank that is has got the wind blowing towards it, that's where all the food's going to be, and I'm hoping that the fish will follow that, so that where I'm casting to is going to be where the fish will be milling around. I'm using two lines. This is a stocked lake, and even though it hasn't been stocked for a while, there's still some trout about. And those trout are pretty smart because they've been in here for a while. They might have even felt a hook before, so then they're a lot harder to catch. So what I've done is I've got one line out that has a dough bait on it, and this is a commercial bait, a Berkeley, and it's an aniseed one. So I've got that out on one line, and the other line I'm fishing worms and different types of things to see how I'll go. I'm hoping that it'll be a good day because I only have a couple of hours. But the thing about it is, on a day like this, I was hoping it would be overcast, but there's a breeze on the water. So if it was overcast, that gives the fish a bit more feeling of confidence. And it's not that at the moment. There's a bit of sun out, which is good for me because it's so damn cold. But the other thing is that there's a bit of wind there, so it's breaking up the surface of the water, and that makes the fish feel a bit more confident as well, because predators and things like that can't see them from above. So I'm hoping with the baits I've got today, the wind in my face, no feeling in my nose, that I'll be able to catch a few fish. Let's see how we go. After about 20 minutes, I was into my first fish, and I'd got enough belly into the area to really get them going. Now this lake is like a lot of lakes around Victoria. It's actually stocked with fish by Agriculture Victoria. So it's not a trout farm. This is an open lake that anybody can fish, and the fees from your fishing licenses pay for these stocking. So it's worth having a look at the Agriculture Victoria site for lakes near you. So this was the first trout, and unfortunately they come off the hook pretty easy. There's a lot of head shaking they do, a lot of activity that they flip around and they remove the hook pretty easily, like this one did. Unfortunately, he hit the ground and it was pretty darn hard to pick up too. But because it had hurt itself, I actually had to put this one down, as I did one other. All the rest were returned to the water. Shortly afterwards, hooked into another one, and you can see the conditions through the day were changing from sunny to overcast. We even got some rain, but I was doing the same thing all the time, casting to a marker on the lake over the other side. So I cast in the same direction every time and cast the same distance every time, which meant I got burley in the same spot every time. And that's how the fish were so productive, because there was food there attracting them from all over the lake to one spot where I had my hook. And here again is another one, and you can see they're all about the same size. Yeah, not too bad. And therein I had another rod here, and this one I had Berkeley power bait on. Now this is a scented bait. It's sort of like dough. You can buy it at the tackle store. This one had aniseed flavour in it, and it floats. So it's actually sitting above the bottom. So you've got your weight and then a hook above that. And so I had this about 15 centimetres above the bottom of the water. And I caught only 2 fish on this all day. And it works well with fish like trout that aren't always fishing or feeding on the bottom. They're sometimes mid-water, and so you can vary the distance and catch those fish that are holding in water or aren't on the bottom or even feeding from the surface. And there you go, another little trout. And you can see you've got the sinker there, and the distance between that sinker and the fish's mouth is the distance between the weight and the bait. So it worked pretty well on a couple of fish, but that was all. But for the rest of the day, it was really on the other rod where I was casting to that same spot every time. And it got to the point where I was virtually getting a fish between 20 minutes and just a couple of minutes. So sometimes I cast out and get one fairly quickly. So it turned out to be a pretty productive day. I did get wet a few times, which wasn't all that pleasant, but the fact is the fish were were biting. And the other thing about getting wet was the barometric pressure had dropped, and I think that's what really brought the fish on the bite. So the right conditions really helped me that day, and there was a few fish to catch. Some of them reasonably small like this one, and some of them a little bit bigger. As you can see now, the water had calmed down because the wind had stopped, but because it was overcast, the fish kept biting, and I actually left eventually because I'd got as many fish as I thought I could, and I was sort of running out of time anyway. But I think I could have stayed there all day and continued this because I was drawing the fish into the same spot. So it turned out to be pretty good. What I'd do is, if I hadn't had a bite for about 10 minutes, I'd reel in like I've just done here, check my bait, put a bit more burley in the burley cage so that I could cast it again. Because the fish were feeding so well, I knew that they were eating a lot of that food there, and so I wanted to get more out to keep them attracted. The other thing is that the breadcrumbs and things like that are not really eaten by the trout. They might eat the little bits of bait that I had in the breadcrumb, but they don't really have much interest in that breadcrumb. It's that the bait that is there. So the fact is that the bread is a smell in the water that attracts them. They're curious about that, but it's really the bait that they want to eat that they're interested in. So it doesn't feed them off. So I'd cast out again as I'm doing here. I used a tree on the other side there as the marker, so I always cast to the same spot. I had to push it out pretty far. I was casting quite hard, and sometimes when there was a wind I wasn't always getting exactly the same spot. Sometimes it pushed me either side, but for the most part I had fish in the right spot. And as you can see, it's changed a little bit. There's sun there. I've got water on my back because the rain came through in that dark spot, but that low barometric pressure I think is really what was getting the fish in. And here again I'm getting those fish coming through, and I was getting into a routine. It was working pretty well.